Thank you for joining us today. We're going to begin our session in just a few moments. We're going to let a few more people trickle in from the waiting room, and we'll begin in a few minutes. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. We're really excited to have you here, and we're going to begin by just talking a little bit about how the session is going to work today. Obviously, the topic of this conversation is about planning for your education at Trent University. What we're going to address is two major topics. One, the general topic of how to budget for your education, how to plan to pay for the 4 years that you're going to be studying at Trent. And then two, what most of you are probably most interested in is our options for awards and scholarships for undergraduate international students. This is a great topic. What I'd like to tell you is that this is the first of several sessions that we're going to be having. So if you have questions after the session is complete, we're going to provide you with lots of ways to get in touch with us, to join us at a future session, and also ask your questions today. At the bottom of your screen, you should see an option for posting questions in the Q&A chat box. We invite you to type your question at any time during the session today. We will be monitoring it, and if it's something we can answer right on the spot, we will, or if it's something that's going to be addressed later in the session, we will maybe pause on answering the question until it falls into our flow. Anyways, we're very happy to have you here, and we're going to begin with a little round of introductions. So my name is Paul Longhurst. I'm the Global Engagement Manager at Trent International. And what that means is I work with a really great team to support all of Trent University's international students throughout your academic journey, from basically the time that you get an offer of admission, through applying for your study permit, through coming to Canada, your transition to life in a new country, new climate, new culture, and new academic setting, throughout your degree and all the ups and downs that you will invariably have, and then to graduation and beyond with immigration, with your immigration issues. I'm a regulated international student immigration advisor, so I'm able to give you legal advice on study permits and immigration issues related to that. And my team, who you'll meet two of today, are experts in supporting international students in general. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Miguel to introduce himself and say a few words.
Thank you very much, Paul. Hi, everyone. My name is Miguel Capilla. I am the Trent International Student Programs Assistant. And in my role, what I do is I oversee the programming of Trent International. That includes events, sessions for you during your transition. And of course, part of my portfolio includes Trent International Orientation Week, which is basically the couple of days in which we spend together trying to give you all the information that you need for a good and smooth transition into your life in Canada and here in Trent. So it is a pleasure to be here with you. And now I turn it over to my colleague, Nachiket.
Thank you, Miguel. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar. My name is Nachiket Zambekar. I'm the Administrative Assistant of Trent International. I have two major portfolios. One is coordinating the front desk team, which is a team of 5 student staff. So if some of you have emailed international@trent.ca, some of my staff members monitor that email address, and sometimes even myself. And we answer a lot of frontline questions, help students get to the right resource, or forward those emails to the different team members. And the second part of my portfolio is scholarships. So I do the initial screening and processing of scholarship applications. And I'm really glad that you all have joined today, and I move it for Paul.
Thank you so much to both of you. A fun fact I'd like to share before we go on to the next slide is that all three of us are Trent grads, albeit in different years and different majors, but we've all been in your shoes. We've all chosen to come to Trent University, and we all successfully graduated. Additionally, all three of us have been international students in different capacities. Nachiket and Miguel came to Trent as international students, and I am a Canadian, but I studied abroad as an international student at one point in my academic career as well. So we've been in your shoes. We know the questions that you have, and we know some of the worries that you may have leaving home for the first time and coming to study in a new place. So we're here to help you throughout your academic journey. So how we're going to structure our presentation today is, as you can see, we're going to talk a little bit about the budgeting and cost of studying at Trent University. It's really important to me, and it's really important to you to have a clear, reasonable expectation and a plan about what it costs to study. We'll go through it in great details, but basically, we need to have a plan because it's a big investment, and we want to make sure that you're able to have the best experience possible and get your degree as quickly as possible as well. We're going to talk about some important dates and deadlines about fee payments that you need to know. And then Nachiket's going to go into depth about our scholarship and award options and procedures for international students. After that, I'm going to talk a little bit about other ways of funding your education, including working in Canada while you're a student and accessing other funding sources which may be available to you depending on your context. But first of all, we're going to have a little poll because we want to get a sense of who you are in the audience. We understand that lots of students come into Trent for different reasons. Maybe it's to learn English as a second language. Maybe it's to do a post-graduation certificate, master's, PhD. But for the purpose of today's session, most of the content we're talking about pertains directly to undergraduate degree-seeking students. There will be other sessions for those of you who are doing other levels of study, but this session pertains to undergraduate students.
Thank you, Paul. So hello, everyone. I've released the poll. It should open in a different window. So if you're not able to see it, it would be best to minimize the Zoom screen and view the poll in a different window.
This information we're only collecting for right now. We just want to get a sense of who's in the room. And obviously we won't do anything with the information. It's all anonymous once we're done. Well, that's exciting so far because I can see the results in real time. It looks like most or all of you, most of you are undergraduate students, which is great. And most of you, maybe 2/3 of you, are joining alone, and maybe 1/3 of you are with your family members, which is fine. There's no right or wrong answer. But what I would like to let you know is that you may want to include your family in a future webinar because having a sort of clear expectations about what it's going to cost and how you're going to fund your education it's a family decision. For a lot of us, especially those of us, when we're in high school, we don't talk a lot about money with our family. But when this is an investment that you and your parents and often your extended family are making, it's really important to be forthright about who's going to be paying for what and what the terms are. So very helpful information. I see there's 2 of you who are studying at a different level than undergraduate. We have an English as a second language student, which is wonderful. And we have a post-graduation certificate student. That's great. They're both really good programs. As the scholarship information today isn't directly related to your programs, you're welcome to stay on the call or drop off, not a big deal. But just be aware that most of the information we're talking about pertains to undergraduate students specifically.
I'll be closing the poll in 5 seconds. Okay.
That's great. Thank you so much for your participation. I think we can go on to the next slide where we're going to talk a little bit about budgeting. Actually, if we can go back one slide for a second, Nachika, I just wanted to mention. So one fun thing that you're going to learn more about is that Trent has two different campuses. The one behind me with the river and sort of the architectural significant buildings on the shoreline is our Peterborough campus. And the one that you see on the slide is our Durham campus. Durham is basically in the Greater Toronto area, and Peterborough is an independent city, maybe an hour and a half away from the Toronto region. So we'll talk more about that as we get closer to orientation and selecting courses and stuff, but I just wanted to point that out. So as I mentioned, it's really important to have a clear expectation of what your fees are going to be. Different programs have different costs, and what we're showing on this slide are kind of general estimates, kind of a good guiding principle for planning your degree. Tuition fees at Trent and at every other college and university are subject to change every year after the Senate and Board of Governors reviews them. But the information we're giving you now is based on our most accurate prices for this year. So an undergraduate degree, in most cases, is about $26,000. All of these prices are Canadian dollars, CAD. So tuition is your academic expenses. It's the cost of going to classes, basically. Additionally, every student pays ancillary and levy fees of about, under $3,000. What these ancillary and levy fees are is they cover the supplemental non-academic services that all students have access to and benefit from. These include, mandatory transit pass, so you can take the bus. It includes access to the athletic center, gym. It includes levies for student clubs and groups, your student government, and many other great services that really enrich your experience as a student. The cost of housing and meals, as you can see, they range quite widely because a lot of this is up to personal preference and personal choices. But what we don't want is for someone to have an unrealistic expectation that they can live very inexpensively in Canada. It does cost a fair amount to live here for a few different reasons. In terms of housing options, if you choose to live on campus in one of our on-campus residences, it's a great option for a new student. There is a mandatory meal plan included in that. So you get 3 meals a day from one of our many cafeterias and food service providers. If you're living on campus, your costs are going to be at a minimum $10,000, probably closer to $12,000, $13,000, $14,000. If you're living off campus in a private accommodation, maybe sharing a room in a house, your housing costs will be on the lower end of that. If you're living in a 1-bedroom apartment, a private condominium, for example, your cost will be in the higher end of that. So a lot of this depends on what your personal desires are and your personal budget. But having realistic expectations for that is really, really beneficial. Similarly, meals, students have different food tastes. If you're going to eat at a restaurant every day, obviously you're going to budget on the highest end of the spectrum, probably more than $15,000 a year. If you're going to cook for yourself and eat, with some modesty, then I guess you can put budget on the lower end as well. Books and supplies, it varies depending on what program you're in and whether you can source used books or whether you want to borrow stuff from the library. But we say if you budget between $1,000 and $1,500, it's a safe buffer to get you your books and supplies that your classes will need per year. Personal expenses obviously vary greatly. It depends a lot on your lifestyle and your needs. At a minimum, I would say $2,000 is sufficient for a year so that you could buy, clothes when something wears out, or your cell phone plan and your basic, treats and a bit of socialization and going out once in a while. If you have ambitions to do more things in the kind of tourist realm, like maybe visiting other parts in Canada during your holidays, or if you have a very expensive taste, then you should budget more for your personal expenses. So in conclusion, for an undergraduate student to study for a year, you need to have at least in the low $40,000, maybe up as high as about $50,000, depending on your lifestyle. If you consider that an honors undergraduate degree, which is a 4-year or 20 credit degree, is 4 years, then you should be multiplying that expense by 4, and that's basically the cost of your education. Just quickly, you can see that postgrad certificates and ESL students have slightly different prices. Postgrad certificates have reduced tuition and fees. They're a shorter program, so the cost is basically, reduced accordingly. And our English as a second language program, it's hard to estimate per year because often an ESL student will only do 1 or 2 terms of English before starting an undergraduate degree. But there's what you need to know. What I want to mention also is for those of you who are applying for a study permit, which I assume is all of you, Immigration Canada does require proof that you have the ability to pay for your education. Proof of financial means is what they call it. And it's one of the most common reasons that a study permit application will be rejected. So what IRCC needs to see when you apply is proof that you have funds for 1 year's tuition plus $10,000 Canadian for your living expenses. That's what IRCC needs to know. So that puts you in about the $35,000, $36,000, $37,000 proof for IRCC. As you can see, that's lower than what we're putting on this screen for your estimated cost. So we want to have realistic expectations, and with inflation, the cost of living, you should be budgeting closer to the mid $40,000 per year. We're going to do an immigration webinar in the coming few months. We'll do a few repeated ones, and we'll go into greater detail about how to provide your proof of financial means. But just you can do it in various ways. Just rest assured that when you apply for your study permit, you need to have proof that you have the money to pay for your first year. And then in practical terms, you need to have a plan to pay for your second, third, and fourth year as well. Like everything, there's important deadlines you need to be aware of. In general, most of you, I assume, are starting in the September intake. So please be aware that you need to pay your tuition deposit by mid-June. This year, I think it's actually specifically the June 15th. All of these dates are listed on our student finances website, which you can Google. You can just put Trent University financial deadlines and it'll take you right to the webpage. This is a $2,500 deposit, which reserves your spot in the classes and lets us know that you're coming, and we can plan to staff the classes and timetable the courses accordingly. If you will be living on campus in residence, your residence fees and your full tuition payment is due before the start of the fall term. So basically mid to late August, you make that payment. For those of you, well, actually, we bill per term. So you pay for the fall term residence and tuition before September 1st, and you pay for your winter term tuition and residence fees before January 1st. So planning for a mid-August and mid-December transfer is really helpful. Specific prices will be sent to you, closer to those dates once you registered in courses and once you've confirmed your occupancy and residence. If you're starting your classes or studying in the summer, basically the start of the term where those classes correspond to is when you pay, so either May or end of June. We realize that sending a lot of money internationally is maybe new for a lot of you, and also, yes, unfamiliar. So Trent University is trying to make it easy. We have a preferred provider that helps us with international transfers called TransferMate. It's secure, it's reputable, it's available in almost every country, and it allows a bank transfer from a bank account. It allows a payment with a credit card. And a nice thing about it is that your payment will show up basically instantly in your student account statement so that you can confirm that the money's been received. You can provide proof of payment to immigration or to anyone else that needs it. And it's really never been easier to send money internationally. If you happen to live in a country where TransferMate is not available, our colleagues in the student accounts office are available to help you to find an alternative payment option. The email is there, studentaccounts@trentu.ca. Most countries, as I said, can use TransferMate, but there's a few who have some challenges with that. So if you're coming from one of those countries, let us know. Obviously, once you're settled in Canada, you'll have a Canadian bank account, and many students choose to pay their tuition from their Canadian bank account the same way they would pay a cell phone bill or their internet payment or something, which is just basically as an online bill payment. It's super easy, and we'll help you with that once you're here and settled. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Nachikit to go into a little bit of detail about the scholarships available to you.
Thank you so much, Paul. So hello, everyone. In this section, we'll be talking about the financial aid offered by Trent International and explore different ways we support students financially in the form of scholarships and awards. So this is perhaps one of the most core topics of this webinar, which is scholarships and awards. And I'm very pleased to share that Trent has been the #1 university in Ontario for scholarships and bursaries for the last 21 years. And we give up to 120K in scholarships and awards to new international undergraduate students over a 4-year period. And incoming undergraduate students are eligible for automatic Trent University entrance scholarships, and they're also able to apply for prestigious Trent International scholarships and awards. We also have a lot of financial support systems for current students in the form of scholarships, awards, and bursaries. So when you're a Trent student, you can apply for some types of scholarships and financial aid. And if we want to categorize the scholarships that there are for incoming students, we can make 2 simple categories. The first category is scholarships that do not need an application. So these are the kind of scholarships that doesn't require a lot of proactiveness from your side, but there are certainly some steps that you need to take. For example, when you apply to Trent, you need to submit all of the documents on time and make sure that you meet all the admission requirements. Once you get admitted to Trent, you get considered for these scholarships automatically. There's no form that you need to fill. The second kind of scholarships are the scholarships and awards that need an application. So you can see that there are a lot of different scholarships under this category. The good thing is that you only need to fill just one form to apply for all the scholarships at once. So it makes the process a little more streamlined for you. And these require a bit more proactiveness on your part to get these scholarships and get considered for these scholarships. So talking about the scholarships that do not need an application. So we have 2 kinds of scholarships in this category. One is the Trent University entrance scholarships, and second is the IB entrance scholarships. Now, the good thing about the entrance scholarships is, let's say you have a grade over 80%, which is in the Canadian equivalent. It's guaranteed that you will get the scholarship if you have a grade over 80% when it's converted into a Canadian equivalent. So if you have a grade over 80 or more, you will get an amount between $1,000 to $3,000, depending on where your grade lands in this range. And if you are an IB diploma student, you can also qualify for the $1,000 IB entrance scholarship. The good thing about this scholarship is that it can be combined with the entrance scholarship that's listed above, and also the Trent International Global Citizen Award. So you can have a combination of 2 or 3 scholarships together, which could be really helpful. One thing to note about these scholarships is that these are not renewable. They only will be applied in your first year of at Trent. Talking about the eligibility of entrance scholarships, the first and foremost, the most important eligibility criterion is you need to be an international student who will be studying in Canada on a study permit. So domestic students or Canadian citizens, permanent residents are not eligible for the scholarship. And you need to have applied for an undergraduate degree program at Trent University. So as we mentioned at the beginning, that this webinar is more geared and focused towards students who are undergrad. So you need to be enrolled in an undergraduate degree program to be considered for these scholarships. And the third point is meet Trent University's admission requirements, including general and degree specific requirements and English language admission standard. So when you apply for a specific program, there are general admission requirements that you need to fulfill. And there are also specific degree specific requirements that you also need to fulfill. Along with that, since we are coming from different countries, we need to demonstrate our proficiency in English. And for that, you need to give an English language testing, an English language test. If you don't have the criteria to get exempt from those English language testing examinations. Last and foremost is you will need to fulfill the conditions of a conditional offer letter and register for courses to receive the scholarship amount. So this is very important. Typically, when students apply to Trent, they're not able to submit all of the required documents on time, but that's not at all a problem. You can receive a conditional offer letter, and the conditional offer states certain conditions that you need to submit this document before the semester begins or things like that. So if you fulfill those conditions and get registered for courses, only then you'll receive the scholarship amount. So these are the main eligibility criteria that we need to keep in mind for the entrance scholarships. Then comes the scholarship that need an application. So these are the scholarships that are supported by different donors all around the world. And we are very fortunate that we have such programs in place to support students who are coming to Trent. And I won't go into deep detail on each of them. All of this information is on Trent International's website. So you can go through all this content on the website itself. The eligibility criteria that you need to keep in mind are highlighted below. Some of the all of the criteria that apply to entrance scholarships also apply to the scholarships that require an application. So the important thing to keep in mind is you need to be an undergraduate program, and only if you're coming in the fall sem, then you will be able to apply for the scholarships. Another important thing is that having an average grade would not be enough to get considered for the scholarships. You at least need an A average or equivalent standard, or the Canadian equivalent standard, to get considered for the scholarships and be a competitive applicant. And things become a little more complex with these kind of scholarships because grades are not the only thing that matters. We have a more holistic approach when we assess applications for these scholarships. So you need to also demonstrate leadership through community service or excellence in different fields like arts, sports, or other areas of individual achievement. And once, so you might have the question how you do that. There's an application form that you need to fill, which I'll talk in the later slides. And you also need to upload 2 letters of recommendation, which will be part of the application form, and I will touch on that very soon. And last, the most important thing is complete and submit the online Trent International Scholarships and Awards application by February 15th, 2023 at 11:59 Eastern Standard Time on a Migrant portal. So I will touch on these things in the next slides. So you may ask the question, what is the Migrant portal? So some of you have not applied, which is absolutely fine. So Migrant portal can be thought of as a website which is individualized and linked to each student. So when you apply to Trent and we receive the documents that you have submitted, we generate a very special and unique code, which is called a student number for each student. You use that student number along with the application email address that you use to make this Migrant portal. This Migrant portal gets automatically generated, and you use this portal to access different resources offered by Trent, to upload different documents, and also to fill out certain forms. So once you make the Migrant portal, you will have to go to the finances section of this portal. And under finances, there is the international subsection. On that, when you click on this tab, which says Trent International Scholarships Application, you will be able to access a form that looks like this. So this is the exact screenshot of this form, and I will go through each of the different sections of this form in detail. So the first part is the Trent International, the title of the form. The second part is just reiterates what I said before, that you need to complete this form before February 15th and submit it on time. And it's only for undergraduate students who are coming in September 2023. Then comes for full scholarship details. You need to go, you have the option to go to the Trent International website and see the eligibility information. The next part is a checklist, which you can self-identify if you are an IB student or if you are a student belonging to the United World Colleges, or if you're a student from Asia. So we can get a sense of which scholarships you can potentially be eligible for. So you can check all the fields that apply to you. Now, the next part is the personal statement. So this is where things get a little more complex. So it says, tell us about your academic aspirations and future career goals, including how Trent University can help you in achieving these goals. So this is where you need to reflect a lot and write an essay while respecting the word limit of 500 words. So you need to tell us about your aspirations, what you intend to do, and how Trent can help you achieve these goals. What you like about Trent, and what is the most attractive feature of Trent that's motivating you to apply to Trent and become a Trent student. Then the instructions say that please upload a statement in a Word or a PDF document with the file name in the following format. So this is really important. Once you write your essay in any text editor like Microsoft Word or Google Docs, you need to make sure that you convert that essay into either a Word document or a PDF document. Please don't upload files in any other format because we won't be able to access them. And if you are not able to see the content, your application will get disqualified. And we don't want that to happen. So make sure that the file is the correct file and you upload the right document which has the content that you want to share with us. Then the thing to keep in mind is how you name the file. So it should be in the following format: the last name, the first name, your Trent ID, and the slash and the dash and the PS. So the last name, so my last name is Zambekar. I put Zambekar Nachiket, my Trent ID, which is a 7-digit number that you will get once you apply to Trent. And then the PS. So PS stands for personal statement. This is for our reference so that we know that this file contains a personal statement. It's really important that you follow this format and upload the right file. And once you click on the choose file option, it will open the file system of your computer and you will be able to upload the file onto this application form. Then comes the list of extracurricular activities and critical reflection. For this section, you have the opportunity to make an essay or a video on the following topic. So this is where things get a little interesting. So we want to get to know you better. Please tell us about your passions, interests, community involvement, future ambitions. Your essay should be a critical reflection on your extracurricular activities and demonstration of your future capabilities. So we want to know more about you, what you have done, and how you can contribute to the Trent community in a better way with the skills that you have acquired through your experiences. And here you have two options. Either you can write an essay or you can upload a video. The essay again has a word limit of 500 words. Please do not exceed that word limit. And if you decide to do a video, please include the link in a Word or a PDF document and ensure sharing capabilities, allowing external users to view the video. So what this simply means is that even if you choose to make a video, you still need to upload a PDF document or a Word document which contains the link to the video. So there are two things that you need to keep in mind is that when you upload this document, make sure that the link works and it takes us to the video and that the video is accessible to us. So that we can view the video and see what the video has and see the content. Even the similar, just like the essay has a word limit, the video has a time limit. Please don't make the video longer than 4 minutes. Last year we had a lot of beautiful videos, but they were too long for us to assess them and give them enough time. So please respect the word limit, and you will not be assessed by video editing skills. So another thing to keep in mind, if you insert beautiful animations and really good transitions, it's not going to make a difference in the application. We are only going to assess the content and how well framed the video is, not how well made it is. Even a simple of video in front of your phone, if you just hold a phone like this, even that's fine. What's more important is the content of the video and how you tell your story to us and how beautifully articulated it is. So that's what's important to us. And again, you have to upload either a Word document or a PDF with the last name, your first name, your Trent ID, and EXE. So EXE stands for extracurriculars. So again, it tells us that this file contains your video or your essay. And then you can upload the file. Then comes the financial information. And then there's a side note that says, please mention all financial figures in CAD, so Canadian dollars. All international students are required to demonstrate proof of financial means to IRCC in order to obtain a study permit. So as Paul mentioned before, that this is a really important part of your study permit application. So just as you demonstrate your financial means to IRCC, you need to summarize that even in this application form. So you need to explain whether your parents are going to pay for your education or you have received a loan from an organization or a bank. So mention all of those things so that we can know better how to support you. And it gives us an overview of your financial status. Please briefly explain your plan to pay for 1 year of tuition plus 10,000 CAD for living expenses. The estimated cost of the first year of living and studying in Canada is approximately 40,000 CAD as per the Government of Canada. This amount includes tuition, mandatory fees, immigration documents, housing, food, and living expenses. Please tell us in 300 words or less how you are planning to pay for this amount. Also, please explain to us how the Trent International Scholarships and Awards is essential to support you to meet this financial obligation. So again, we need to have a good picture of what the financial status is so that we get to know how best we can support you. And then comes the section of the reference letters, which is again a very important part of our application. We require 2 letters of references. This should be from someone who knows you well and can speak to your strengths. For example, a teacher, a sports coach, a volunteer job supervisor, a volunteer coordinator. I know that our parents, our family members can speak well to our strengths, but we don't want that because, for example, if I ask my mom to write a recommendation letter for me, she's going to say the best things in the world, and that will be the best recommendation letter ever. But we don't want that. We want someone outside of a family or friends to write the recommendation letter. There is no special reference form. However, the letter must address the following points. You can ask your referees to expand on these different dimensions of the letter. The first is your academic work and your intellectual qualities. The second is involvement in extracurricular activities and community events, your leadership skills and character. So your referee can expand on each of these sections. And the reference letters can be attached to this form or sent by email to international scholarships at 20.ca. So sometimes referees are not comfortable sharing the letter with you. So they have the option to email that letter directly to us. So please ensure your reference includes your name and Trent student number in the subject of the email so that we know that the letter that we have received can be attached to the application. Additionally, a letterhead from a references organization, institute, workplace is required along with the contact information. So this is again very important for us to make sure that the letter is legitimate. And then you will see 2 drop boxes for each of the letter. Make sure that you don't upload both the letters in one Dropbox. You need to upload both of them individually in each individualized Dropbox. So the drill is the same. It could either be a Word document or a PDF. The last name, the first name, your Trent ID, and REF1, which is reference 1, and similar process for the reference letter 2. Then comes the declaration of information, which you can go through and select. And the last thing that I want to emphasize on is that we care about your privacy. So any information that you share on this form will not be shared to anyone outside of Trent. So all the confidentiality standards will be maintained with this form. And you can be very confident about sharing your information. And touching on the tips of your application, read and follow all the instructions well. Please make sure that you're not uploading the wrong file and you are completing all sections of the form. Gather the materials needed ahead of time. So sometimes you may not apply on time. So that's absolutely fine. Applying in sense, applying to Trent. So it's best to make sure that you have all the sections of the application form ready beforehand. And since you know what the application form is going to look like, you can get those sections ready, write those essays before time. And once you have access to the form, you can fill out that form and submit the application before the deadline. The important part is reflecting on experiences. So each section, you need to reflect on experiences. We want to get to know you better. And the important, again, is requesting letter of recommendations early. Sometimes the referees can take some time to write the letter. So it's very important that you ask beforehand. And proofread your essays and applications. So the good thing to do is proofread those essays yourself and the application as well. And you can ask someone else to proofread as well. It could be your family members or your friends, so that you don't miss out on any common grammatical errors or any structural errors in your application. Work on Microsoft Word and copy text over on the application. So this is also very important for the financial status part of the application. You can write that content on Microsoft Word or Google Docs, and you can use the text editor feature of those applications to weed out any common grammatical errors. And then once everything is done, make sure that you complete the application and submit it. In the previous years, the common challenge that we found in all of the application was that it was incomplete. And this does not work in a favor, because then we don't consider applications. So make sure that all of the sections of the application are complete. And then you press submit the application before the deadline. Talking about the application steps and deadlines. So this is how the chronology will look like. You need to apply to Trent for admission by February 1 and activate your Migrant portal. So February 1 is a good deadline, because you need to have enough time to get your student number, submit your documents, and in order to activate your Migrant portal. Then apply for the Trent International Scholarships and Awards by February 15, 2023, 11:59 p.m. So this is a very strict deadline. The scholarship application form will close after this deadline. Please make sure that you submit it before this time. And please note that this deadline is in Eastern Standard Time. So don't submit the form as per your time zone. Follow the Eastern Standard Time zone. And then the scholarship decisions will be released on April 28, 2023. So just like we have a deadline for you, we have set a deadline for ourselves as well, and we will make sure to release all the decisions by April 28th. One thing to keep in mind is that applying early for the scholarships does not make a difference, because we will start assessing the applications only after February 15th. So students who have already applied don't have an advantage over students who apply near the deadline. but we recommend that you apply well in advance so that if you feel like you want to make any changes, you can do that by informing us. But make sure that when you you apply in the first place and all things are correct so that we don't have to initiate changes all the time. And the last part is either to accept or decline the scholarship offer or the offer of admission from Trent. So these are the steps that you need to keep in mind in order to successfully apply for the scholarships and get considered and be a part of the application process. And I will hand it over to Paul. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for taking us through that process, Nachikeet. Much appreciated. I see a few questions and answers going into the chat, which is great. Keep them coming, and we will answer them either in the chat box or live later on. But what I'm going to speak about now is just some of the other ways to supplement the funding of your education. As I'm sure you could realize from watching the slides, our scholarships are substantial, but they're not going to cover 100% of your expenses. So we need to have other ways to fund it. We're going to go to the next slide, and we can talk about a few things. One of the most common ways that international students supplement their living expenses is by working a part-time job while you are in Canada. It's a great option for a few reasons. Obviously, the first reason is because you get paid money to work, so that helps offset some of your living costs. But the other reason is because it gives you Canadian work experience, which helps you build your resume, make some connections, and often these opportunities lead to future employment opportunities after graduation. So to summarize your options working as an international student, your study permit will include conditions that state that you are allowed to work in Canada, basically. In normal times, a student can work during the regular school year 20 hours per week off campus at basically any job. Additionally, or instead of, a student can work unlimited hours on campus at an on-campus job. Trent International and many other departments hire lots of students to work on campus, and there will be opportunities for you to work those jobs as well. Because there's a labor shortage in Canada right now, the federal government has created a temporary accommodation which allows international students to work in excess of 20 hours per week off campus while your classes are in session. This policy is in effect until December 31st, 2023, after which we're not sure what's going to happen. It'll either go back to normal, 20 hours a week, or it will be extended. So we will keep you posted on that as the government announces more. Additionally, when you're on a scheduled break, which for most students includes the summer term and also the holiday period, which happens around Christmas and New Year's, so the end of December, you can work unlimited hours as well. So lots of options to work. But I like to remind students to be realistic. Your main purpose for coming to Canada is to study. You also need to sleep. You also need a social life. So, in addition to your studies, it's often difficult to work more than 20 hours a week. I don't recommend trying to work a full-time job while going to classes because invariably your academics will suffer, and then the consequences are often worse than not having some money to spend. That said, the minimum wage in the province of Ontario, which is where Trent is located, is $15.50 Canadian dollars an hour. It's not insubstantial. That's a decent wage, and but if you imagine $15.50 times 20 per week, that gives you a sense of how much money you're going to make. Obviously, that's not going to cover everything, but it can supplement your living expenses. It can give you some spending money. It can help to cover some of the cost while you're here. Your study permit has other conditions in addition to working. One of the conditions with a study permit is that you are a full-time student while you're in Canada. If you, for some reason, take fewer than a full-time course load, you need to talk to our immigration advisor to make sure that you're aware of the consequences. And B, you cannot work. So if you take a reduced course load, just because you want to, you can't work anymore at all. So it's really essential that you maintain a full-time status while you're an international student. Unless, of course, you're in your final term and you only need a part-time course load to graduate. And we have lots of time to talk about that, but we can accommodate that. So that's the option. Working is for sure an option. We have a great resource on campus to help you is called Career Space. It's an office dedicated to helping students find meaningful work. International students often write to me or visit me in the office saying they can't find work. Well, and my answer to them is, I believe you, but we can help you find work. Right now in Canada, there are help wanted signs everywhere. Every restaurant, retail store, tourism industry, hotels, they're looking for workers, and international students are able to work. The reason, in my experience, many international students aren't getting these jobs is because they don't know how to make their presence known or how to make themselves look attractive in a Canadian job market. There might be different ways to comport yourself in an interview, to prepare a resume, or to highlight the skills that you have, even if you don't have a work experience. And our colleagues at CareerSpace can help you to make your resume and a cover letter as good as possible, and also to highlight your personal skills. So once you get here, you can connect with CareerSpace and make sure that you're ready to work. Obviously, in addition to scholarships and working, many students seek external financial aid. This can come in one of various ways, but it also can't come through some ways. So what I'm going to begin by just talking a little bit about where you won't be able to get money from. There's a program in the province of Ontario called OSAP, the Ontario Student Assistance Program. Canadian students often use this, and it's a government loan essentially to pay for an education. Unfortunately, international students are not eligible for OSAP, so you won't be able to get funding from the Canadian government, nor will Canadian banks lend money to a non-citizen because the risk of default is too high. It's a lot of money, and for someone who isn't a Canadian citizen, there is the possibility that they would just leave, and recouping money is difficult. So you're not going to be able to borrow money from a Canadian bank while you're here. But there are other ways to find money. If you need to take out a loan, a bank in your home country should be one of your first spots to talk to, or maybe your government, because some governments do offer loans or grants on occasion to international students to study abroad. Often there's a condition that you come home and use your skills to help better the country that you came from, which is a great idea as well. Additionally, you may want to talk to your community network, maybe your extended family, and if they're not able to give you money for an education, often they may be willing to carry a private loan, which you can start paying back on whatever terms once you graduate and get a job. There are also service clubs that exist internationally, Rotary, for example, the Shriners, the Kinsmen, the Kiwanis Club, all of these things, they have presence in different countries. If you have a family member who's a member of those clubs, you may be eligible to access some of their funding that they have for scholarships. You're going to have to do looking on your own because we can't keep track of them all, but they do exist. Similarly, there are some cultural and spiritual groups that do offer funding for students to study abroad. So you should do your research well ahead of time. Getting a loan before you come to Canada and accrue the debt is often easier than after you have a bill due and you're in another country. So having that conversation now is really timely. So we left you with a lot of information today. As I said at the start, you don't have to memorize all of this. We are recording this session. We're going to make it available on our website in short order, maybe not today, but before the holiday break. Also, we're going to repeat this session later on in the term. If you're one of the proactive students who have already submitted an application, obviously you can take the information we gave you, consider it, and resubmit your application. We will only process the most recent submission, so feel free to resubmit it again, and we can, only assess your most recent submission. These emails on the screen are really useful. If you have general inquiries, our email international@trentu.ca is monitored by Nachikit and the front desk team. They can answer almost all questions, and anything they can't answer, they can refer to another colleague who will be able to. So that's really good for general inquiries. If you have specific questions about scholarship applications, international scholarships@trentu.ca is our email address. Both of them are super easy to remember, but if you forget them, just take a trip to the international website so you can find everything there. We have 2 physical offices. Our main one is on the Peterborough campus in Champlain College, and we also have an office in Durham. If you're going to be in Canada for some reason and you want to see us, maybe shoot us an email first. We'll make sure that we're available, but we do staff Peterborough office Monday to Friday. Durham has different hours. And you can also call us at that number if you want to talk, although an email is often more helpful because then we can send you a written explanation, which you can refer to and not have any confusion with bad phone lines and poor memories. One of the interesting things and useful things we learned during the pandemic was we have found new ways to reach international students and support them. One of them is through our virtual front desk, which is, as the title suggests, a virtual front desk. It's like a Zoom call where we have our front desk staff on. You can log in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday on those specific times that are listed. And we are available to just chat similar to this, except you'll have a camera on and a microphone on and answer any questions you have. We're going to run it until the 8th of December. Then we're going to shut down for a little period because it's our holiday period, and we will reopen in the new year on January 4th. I understand that you can't click a link on a slide presentation, but if you just go to your favorite search engine, Google or whatever, and type in Trent International, it'll take you to the Trent International webpage. You can scroll through and find the actual link to join the Zoom meeting. So that is good to know. We really look forward to connecting with you, and we know that this meeting today is the first of many conversations that we're going to be having and the questions you'll have. So with that, it brings us to our question and answer time. I can see that there have been many submissions put in. I know Miguel's going to answer some of them for us now. And if you have other questions that we haven't addressed already, feel free to type them in the box and we will get to them. I'm going to turn over to Miguel.
Awesome. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everyone, for submitting your wonderful questions. I decided that I think it's going to be easier and a little bit more interactive if we just answer this live. If you have more questions or any follow-ups, just keep putting it in the Q&A. So the first question that I want to address is a very specific question about if you come from a UWC school and also you are in the IB system, and can that cover your expenses? So I think the picture of this question is, if you have a high school that is IB, you get a $1,000 one-time only scholarship, and you can also get a if your average is above 80% Canadian equivalent, you can get an entrance scholarship that is also a one-time scholarship. Entrance scholarship, as Nachiket said, it ranges from $1,000 to $3,000 depending on your average. And then you can also apply for the Trent International scholarships and awards and the Global Citizen scholarships. And in this case, also that also includes the UWC scholarships. So that means that maybe in total, you can have a combined scholarship, let's say $15,000, from which maybe $10,000 is from the Global Citizen Scholarship, which is renewable of 4 years, as long as you maintain an average of and then you only have $3,000 from the IB and the entrance scholarship. But with that being said, even though these scholarships can be cumulative, keep in mind that these scholarships will not cover all your students' expenses. These scholarships are basically only for your tuition, all right? You are still in charge of paying your living expenses, which includes your housing, your meals, your transportation. That's why we, in part of the scholarships, when you are doing your application, we want to know, okay, we understand that the scholarship will be useful for you, but we also want to know your financial plan. What is your idea, how you are going to pay for your living expenses, for your housing, because we want to set you up for success. We want to make sure you have a good path and you are going to be good in general terms. So that is very important. So I just wanted to clarify that these scholarships will cover part of your tuition, but they will not cover your whole expenses. And you need to make sure that you understand that very clearly, and to make sure that you do your math and you talk to your parents or your sponsors to know if coming to Canada is viable for you. All right. I will move on for the next question, which is basically, how can you get your converter grades into the Canadian equivalency, which is a great question. So each province in Canada has different equivalencies. So what I recommend is you can even Google Canadian equivalency from your system to Ontario. And that will give you an idea, but the final decision is going to be from our admissions team. They are the ones who have a chart that will assess your grades and make the transfer. Unfortunately, they cannot do it unless you apply to Trent. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to apply, and then they will do the transfer, and they will assess your grades and deliver what is the Canadian equivalency for you. All right. Next one that I want to talk about is, this is a great question. It says that if you can consider the amount that you will receive in a scholarship in your $40,000 that you need to demonstrate as a proof to the Canadian government. The answer is yes. If you are successful into the scholarship process and you receive a scholarship, you will receive a formal letter that says how much money you are going to receive in how much time, and you will need this form when you're applying for your visa. And then I also recommend that you bring that paper when you're in the airport to Solvent and make sure that you can also explain that to the immigration officer, the border officer, sorry. So yes, the answer in short form is yes, it is included, and you can include in your calculations. This is a little bit more about an admissions questions, but I can give you part of the answer. So if you're applying for the May or June intake, which we call the summer intake, and it's the first session of the summer, it depends. It depends the program that you're applying, but let's assume that you're applying to business. Generally, what we are expecting is your final grades and all your package. So for example, if you apply to Trent, but you don't submit your current transcript, even though it's not the final, but it's the one that has the expected grades, we can make an assessment and we can give you a conditional offer. But if you don't submit your transcript, there is no way for us to give an answer in whether you are going to be eligible to get into Trent or not. So the first thing is to make sure that you complete your application, your transcript, and your proof of English proficiency test, if that's required. And after that date, generally it takes a month to have a decision in terms of admission. So that is around the answer for you. And the same applies for people who are coming for June or May. All right. So this is another good question, and I believe we'll talk about it. What kind of supports do Trent gets or do you as a student receive when you're trying to get a campus on job, even if maybe your program doesn't have a co-op? And the answer is still the same. Career Space is a whole department that is focused on their expert on support students in finding jobs and how to make yourself attractive to the Canadian market, to the Canadian labor market. So for example, like it is even from very simple things, such as how to write a cover letter, how to format your resume into Canadian standards, because every country is different. Like in my country, there's a different way to format my resume, and here in Canada, there's another different way. So I strongly recommend that if you're planning to find a job here in Canada, and especially if you want to find a job on campus, then pay a visit to Career Space, talk to them. They can sit down with you, review your resume, give you some critique, and also explain you how to write a cover letter. What do you need to include? Maybe what you need to include. And I think Paul also wants to share something about that.
Thank you so much, Miguel. Well, no, you covered that perfectly. I just wanted to address the other part of the question, which was about co-ops. And obviously a co-op program does provide a really nice opportunity for a student to gain work experience in their field. What I'd like to say, though, is that a lot of international students in particular seem to get hung up on the word co-op because it's a very specific program. They're very competitive. What I'd like to emphasize is that there are a lot of other opportunities for what we call experiential learning, where you get to do work in your field as part of your degree that isn't a co-op. A co-op has a very strict definition in terms of hours and payment. We have a whole area called community-based research where you would do academic work in a community partner, spend basically a few days a week for the term working in a community partner, and then you would write an academic report on it or a summary of your findings. You would help them with the project that they're doing. So essentially you're building professional connections in the field, building to your resume, and also learning whether you like the work that correlates to the things that you're studying. Internships are also an option. We have options for internships during your scheduled break, as well as in many programs, including psychology, in your final year, you can do a major research project or a thesis, which often involves getting out into the community, working with service providers in the area, and then doing academic work in that discipline.
Perfect. Thank you, Paul. I see that there's some more other questions, so I will address it as well. So thank you. If you have more questions, please keep putting in the Q&A. I love to have questions. So and thank you for that part on the terms of the co-op. Paul, I do agree. Sometimes that work can get some different confusions in some ways. But the next question that we have is so you want to, a student wants to hear more about, and I remember this question before, it was, how much you were expected to earn working on campus or off campus, and about career space. And the answer is, Paul touched this during the presentation. In Ontario, the minimum wage is $15, and I believe it's 50 cents. Maybe I'm just a bit wrong in the cents. Yeah, okay, great. So that's the minimum wage that you get in Ontario. And generally, when we post positions for on-campus jobs, we specify what is the pay rate per hour. And then off-campus jobs, generally, they should be following that guideline of $15 per hour as a minimum wage. However, sometimes it can vary, but that's what is expected. And then careers, the whole department, which the whole purpose is to help you to find a job or to get yourself to understand the Canadian job market, to find a job in either on campus or off campus. So another good tip that I'm going to give you, if you want and if you're planning to get a campus on job, you need to check something that is called the Trent Student job portal, but also get involved in the community. Start by being a volunteer, start by getting involved in the community, because that's something that is really important when you are applying for a job here on campus. All right. So going back to the application process and timings, if you apply using OUAC and you're a 101, which means you are a student from Ontario, and you want to have the grades from May, sorry, the admission decision from May or June, it's the same. We need the whole application, we need your expected grades, and generally it takes around a month to have those grades and those decisions ready. The other thing that I want to point out to you is that remember that these scholarships are only for students who are starting in September. So if you're planning or you know that maybe you will need additional financial help, my best advice for you maybe will be, sometimes waiting is a bit harder, or sometimes it's very worth it. So maybe you want to postpone your admission to September and then have the opportunity to apply for these scholarships. The decision is going to be all yours. I'm just putting the opinion here, and it will be up to you to take the best decision for you. All right. So, and finally, starting on May, June, it doesn't have a huge effect on the life of a student. It's just what I just touched base is maybe you will have more opportunities to apply for financial aid if you start in the fall. All right, next thing is, and I love this question, and I think it's great that someone asked this, is if you get an automatic scholarship for the first year, can you also reapply for scholarship in your second year and moving forward? Great question. So I just want to point out very, very, very clearly that these three international scholarships and awards that are the global citizen scholarships that range from, it can be from $1,000 to up to full tuition. These scholarships are only for students who are applying and are new to Trent. All right. So if you decide to come to Trent and then later you want to apply for the scholarships, unfortunately, that's not going to happen. All right. But now going having that part clear, going into the area of the entrance scholarship, that entrance scholarship is only for 1 year. You cannot reapply for that scholarship. But the good news is that we have another scholarship called the in-course scholarship. So this in-course scholarship, what it does is now we look into the GPA or the average that you have here in Trent. And if you have above 80%, you're eligible to apply for the scholarship. As long as you have above 80%, the application will open in late May and it will close in early August. And then you will apply. And if your GPA is according to what we expect, then we will assess it and you can receive a scholarship that can range from $1,000 to $2,000. And the good news is that then, if your GPA is still above 80%, you can reapply the following year, and then you can do it basically almost every year, right? Basically, it replaces the entrance scholarship. Yes, Paul?
I apologize if I missed you saying it, but if you happen to be offered one of our prestigious, like a global citizenship scholarship, obviously it will be applied in your first year, but if you meet certain eligibility criteria, it can be continued every year. So you could receive, $10,000 or 20, whatever it is, $20,000 every year if you maintain a good average. So they are renewable, the prestigious ones.
Yes, the prestigious, the global citizen ones, the ones that you can only apply when you are a student, when you are applying to Trent, yes, they can be renewed as long as you have an average above 70%. Thank you, Paul. And then I love this question, and I think this is great. Basically, the question is, can a transgender person apply for the scholarships? The answer is yes. We don't judge based on any preferences. We only care about the student by itself, how they are, how you perform academically, how you do in terms of leadership potential. That's what we care of. We don't care anything else. So by all means, please apply.
To add on that, when the committee is reviewing submissions, we do it in a blind format. So multiple people are reviewing each submission, and we don't know who else is reviewing it. We don't talk about the submissions until the grades are submitted, and we don't know anything other than what is revealed in the letters from the students. We don't read your age, your gender, any of that stuff, because it's not going to influence how we make a decision.
Thank you, Paul. Yes, that's correct. I think that's the best answer. And finally, I know that I have been talking for a lot. I'm happy to answer this one, but is any of my colleagues, do any of you want to answer the last one from Mohammed?
I'm happy to give it a go. The question has to do with basically, many of you are counting on some scholarship funding to help fund an education, and that's fair. That's totally legitimate, and it's good to realize. The question is kind of worst case scenario. What happens if your application is unsuccessful and you don't have the money to study at Trent? I mean, unfortunately, this does happen sometimes to some students, and I guess two things. One, I guess it's better to know if you don't have enough money to pay for your education before you start it, so you can take some time and make a plan with your family to pay for it in a coming term. Our admissions office is able to, in most programs, to defer your start to a later term. So if you need a little more time to make a plan, instead of starting in September, you could plan to start in January or, bumped back. Yeah, I think that's the main thing. Unfortunately, our scholarship program is the means that Trent has established to help students in financial need. And if the person's not eligible for it for whatever reason, we don't really have another program that can do the same thing. But I think that talking with your family, making a plan, maybe finding a private loan for your own country could help you to plan to come and study. I think that should answer it. Anything else anyone wants to add? No, we're good. Also, looking at the clock, it's 10:45 here in Canada, which is great. It means we've talked for for an hour and 15 minutes, which is a little bit longer than we planned, but I think that with all the good questions, it was worth the time. I want to thank you all for being here. And I would like to invite you to stay in touch with us, to join the future sessions. You have some time to work on your application over the coming month or so. So, take some time and get good references. We look forward to reading your submissions, and we really look forward to meeting you here at Trent University in a future term.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.